In the crazy competitive world of Chinese tech, there's a three-digit code that basically defines life for millions of people, 996. It's a work schedule, sure, but it's also a philosophy, and it's the source of a massive debate. So today, we're going to break down China's infamous 996 work culture and really ask the big question: is it a blessing you need for success, or is it just a curse on the people who live it? All right, let's get into it. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea we're talking about. This stuff gets real, tragically real at the end of 2020. You had this 23-year-old employee at the e-commerce giant Pinduoduo. She's walking home with a coworker at 1:30 in the morning when she just collapses. They tried for 6 hours, but she was gone. Her death absolutely lit up the internet, and it put the very real human cost of these extreme work hours right at the center of the conversation.
Okay, so what is 996 exactly? Well, it's shorthand for a pretty brutal schedule. You work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Yeah, that's a 72-hour work week. And for a lot of China's top tech companies, it's become this unspoken expectation.
And this whole thing, it's not exactly new. The issue first went viral back in 2019 with his online protest called 996.icu. The joke, a pretty dark one, was that if you work 996, you'll end up in the intensive care unit. It kind of faded during the pandemic, but now the problem is back, and it's back with a vengeance.
So why is this all blowing up again? Well, it really comes down to three things. First, you have those awful incidents at Pinduoduo, the death we mentioned, and another employee's suicide, which really put a human face on the whole problem. Second, with everyone working from home, you have the rise of what people are calling hidden overtime, where the line between your job and your life just completely disappears. And finally, you've got a whole new wave of whistleblowers, all anonymous, going online to share their stories.
Okay, but to really get why this culture is so sticky, you got to understand the argument for it. To the people who believe in it, 996 isn't some evil thing, it's a philosophy of ambition. It's about sacrifice, it's about dedication, and it's about the kind of crazy effort you need to get crazy results.
And really, nobody's put this idea out there more famously or, more controversially than Alibaba's founder, Jack Ma. He actually told his employees this in a meeting, framing this intense schedule not as a burden, but as this amazing opportunity. And that quote, it perfectly captures the mindset that has fueled China's entire tech boom.
So the logic here, the core idea, is pretty simple. If you want to change the world, if your company has some massive, ambitious mission like Alibaba's, you can't just clock in at 9 and clock out at 5. To succeed, you have to put in more effort, more time, and more personal sacrifice than anyone else is willing to. It's a choice to be part of something huge.
But then you have the other side of the story. For every argument about ambition and blessing, there's a counter-argument about the reality of the human cost, and how this whole culture doesn't just clash with your well-being, it clashes with the law itself.
I mean, just look at the numbers. When you put in 996 schedule right next to what China's labor law actually says, the difference is, well, it's just staggering. The legal max for a week is 44 hours, 996 is 72. Or look at the month. Legally, with all possible overtime, you top out around 212 hours. A 996 schedule? That's almost 290 hours. It's not even close.
Right, so you're probably thinking, wait a minute, how is any of this legal? Well, that's the thing. A lot of the time, it isn't. But there's this legal gray area. Article 39 of their labor law lets companies use alternative work systems if their business is special, and they get the government to sign off on it. And that clause, well, it's become a loophole that some companies drive a truck through. And the stories coming from inside these companies, wow, they paint a pretty wild picture. You had whistleblowers from Pinduoduo saying that 996 would actually be a relief. Some teams were on 07, which means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when things got busy. Another post that went viral claimed that in their office of almost 1,000 people, there were only 8 toilets. It was, and I quote, harder to get to than becoming emperor.
So, okay, we've heard the arguments, we've heard the stories, but what does the actual data say? A big, recent study of tech employees gives us a really clear picture of what's happening on the ground. Let's take a look.
First off, who's actually living this reality? Well, it's overwhelmingly the young. The survey found that 65% of China's entire tech workforce is under 30. And if you add in people in their 30s, you're talking about 90% of the industry. This is a business that runs on the energy of young people. And this chart, this really shows you what a typical workday looks like. In these private tech companies, working a normal 8-hour day is actually the exception. Only 16% of people do it.
The vast majority, 52%, work overtime, and a full third, 32%, are working 11 hours or more every single day. They are deep in that 996 state.
Okay, but is this just ambitious people choosing to work more like Jack Ma suggested? Is it really a blessing? Well, the data, it tells a very different story. A key finding from the study was that 60% of employees say their overtime is forced. It's not a choice. It's either direct orders, impossible workloads, or just intense pressure from their managers.
And this next part is really interesting, kind of counterintuitive. You'd think flexible work hours would be a good thing, right? Better for work-life balance? Nope. The study found that in companies that had flexible hours, a crazy 85% of employees said they worked constant overtime. It seems that a fixed, rigid schedule can actually act as a kind of overtime stopper. It makes it really obvious when you're working extra. So where does that leave us? It feels like this huge, maybe unsolvable dilemma, right? This trade-off between a dynamic, fast-growing economy and the well-being of the people who power it. Let's look at why it's so tough to fix. And a huge reason why this problem doesn't get fixed is that the official channels, well, nobody uses them. Even with all these issues, only 1% of employees ever actually file for labor arbitration. And why not? Because the process is super complicated, it takes forever, and a lot of them are scared it'll get them blacklisted. So instead, the vast majority, 79%, they just put up with it.
So, what can be done? The research report we've been looking at actually suggests two really clear practical solutions. First, strictly enforce the laws on overtime pay. If companies actually had to pay time and a half or double time, it would suddenly become way more expensive than just hiring more people. And second, make the arbitration process simpler. Create online platforms so employees can file claims easily and lower the barrier to getting help.
But for so many of these workers, a real solution just feels so far away. The report captures this feeling with this really beautiful but also sad piece of poetry. It describes a normal 8-hour workday as a flower in the fog, a moon in the water. It's this thing you can see, you know it exists out there somewhere, but it's just completely impossible to grasp.
And that leaves us with the big, final question at the heart of all this. It's the core tension, really. Can China's tech industry, the engine that powers so much of its economy, actually solve this 996 problem without giving up the very drive and intensity that made it a global powerhouse in the first place? That's the billion-dollar question they're trying to figure out right now.